Hey guys, it's Sebastian back with another video with Lost Hombres, episode 31. And today we're going to be talking about spirituality, breaking down the psyche, and really helping you guys understand the self. And you can walk away today with a deeper understanding of how a human being works and kind of taking this information and going where you need to with it, right? So, in the last couple weeks, I've been reaching a lot of enlightenment. A lot of things have been explained to me. God has been very good to me and helped me understand the world, helped me break down things that I didn't see before, and I've just been very grateful for the blessings I've received and the wisdom that I've been receiving through my openness and my ability to just be conscious of reality and conscious of like my potential, right? So today I want to talk about a couple things, breaking down the matrix of reality, helping you guys understand how the self works, breaking down where my concepts and ideas have come from so we can just be on the same page, and helping you guys break down the higher being and what it looks like to finally unlock the self, right? So what does self mean, right? So recently, in the last couple weeks and the last couple months, I've been doing a lot of moments of, understanding therapy, understanding different modalities. I've been doing a deep dive into the different therapeutic styles, including things like uh, acceptance and commitment therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, interfamily systems therapy. So there's just been a lot of different types of modalities that I've been really exploring. I talked a little bit about it last week, and some of these ideas have been helping me break down the psyche even further and understand how to explain things like spirituality using tools of psychology and helping bridge the gap of like psychotherapy, philosophy, and spirituality, and then get some really deep insights using these things and kind of putting together all these different pieces I've been collecting over time and just seeing how beautiful the system works when you put them all together, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the ACT matrix. So we're going to go back to this philosophy. I've probably talked about it at some point, but I'm going to bring it up again. And that's the idea that if you think of like a rabbit, right? This little rabbit, the rabbit can go forward or it can go away. So it can go towards something or away from something, right? Towards and away. And so, what are things that a rabbit might go towards? So, it could go towards a carrot, go towards some kind of stimulation. And it could also run away from some kind of stimulation. So, something's attacking it or something's happening. So, it's got to get out, right? It's got to move on with its day. And so, you can kind of see here there is motion towards and motion away from what's happening, right? So, depending on the way you see it, depending on what's happening, you're going to see whether something is going towards something or going away, depending on how it's being stimulated. So now we've established there's forward and backwards motion. Okay. Now, there's also the outer world, and then there's the inner world. The outer world are things that you touch, taste, smell. So things that you are doing, right? You can look at something, you can hear something, you can touch something, right? So those are all things that are on the outside of you to interact with the world, right? So now we have the outer world. There's also the inner world. Inner world are your thoughts and your feelings. And within these thoughts and feelings, you have desires, wants, needs, stimulation, right? Things that you don't enjoy. So there's different layers of thoughts and feelings within the person, right? And so there are reasons on the outside of us to go towards something, right? Something we are looking for stimulation, something to do. And there's also stuff on the inside of us that will bring us towards something, right? An objective, a need, just trying to meet something that you're trying to accomplish. There's also the outer world that makes you want to get out, right? So there's fire, there could be some kind of violence, some kind of situation that you see that's causing chaos, and you want to remove yourself from the chaos. You also have chaos within yourself in the sense that sometimes your thoughts and feelings are so uncomfortable that it makes you want to remove yourself from wherever the environment is that you're in. So you end up wanting to leave the situation because wherever you're at is uncomfortable enough for say, hey, this isn't for me. I want to kind of remove myself and get away. Right. So there's times where you want to remove yourself from a situation because your feelings or thoughts are causing discomfort, which is promoting the desire to get away, to remove, right? So now we've established There's forward motion on the outer and inner world, and then there's backward motion on the outer and inner world, right? So now we can think of the person as like, what is the in between of the up and down and the forward and back? So there's the center, right? And so the reality is wherever the rabbit runs around, so whether the rabbit runs forward, backwards, it doesn't matter, right? Whether the rabbit's focused on the outer or inner world, the rabbit will always be the center of its universe. So wherever this rabbit is running around and going, it will always end up being the center of its own reality. And that's how reality works, right? You will always be at the center of your reality. Whether you run forward or whether you run backwards, it really doesn't matter because you're still at the end of the day the center of your world. Just like as if you were wearing like a VR headset. So if you're wearing this VR headset and you're walking around, you as the being are not walking, you are experiencing the world change around you as you're being in this VR headset, right? So as you're in this VR headset and it's moving and you're interacting with it, you're going to see that, hey, I am not the world on the outer self. Right? I'm just the consciousness within the VR headset, right? And so now we understand that the self never changes. Only the realities on the outer and inner world change. But the self is always where it needs to be at that moment because that's where it got to, right? So if you walk somewhere, you got there because you walk there, right? That's how your being works. It can only be where it can achieve this state of being, right? So wherever you walk to, that is where you're meant to be at that moment in time because that is where your reality has brought you, right? Just same thing as being a leaf getting down the river. Getting down the river, you're going through the flow of time. It's going to end up where it needs to be. And the leaf was always in the right place at the right time because it cannot be anywhere else other than where it needs to be at that moment. And if it wants to be in another place, it has to go through the change of discomfort of moving the world around it to get to that place, right? So literally you have to move the world around you to be able to get to a place where you feel, hey, this is where I'm supposed to be, or this is where I have control of my life, right? So we want to remind ourselves that life is like that journey, and wherever you're at in the process is where you're meant to be because that is the process of getting to the end, right? Just as much as a race, you don't get to the end without walking through every part of the race necessary to get to the end, right? Okay, so we are the center of our universe. And then how do you, another way to think about this, how do you know that? Well, whenever you have a dream or whenever you're going through something, you, at the end of the day, are the only one in that dream state. So when you go into a dream, we as a collective cannot be there with you. So every dream that you have is unique to yourself. Everybody who dreams has their own dreams. So if you ever want to feel unique, we all uniquely have our own dreams. We cannot share dreams with each other. We can only experience them within ourselves, right? So they are unique to our story. They're unique just as much as our objectives, our goals, and desires are unique to our story, the same way our dreams are unique to our story. The same way our fingerprints are unique to our story. The same way our eyes are unique to our story. Our voice, everything's unique to our story because we were meant to be unique to that capacity to be able to tell our greatest version of our story. So again, you are always going to be the center of your universe. That is reality at its base, okay? But that's just the beginning of the iceberg. It's understanding that you are the center of reality, right? And that you, every night you go to bed, every time you have your own dreams, your own aspirations, your own values, that is all connected to the you, the being, right? Okay, so now we can say that there's an outer and inner world, motion forward, backward. So I like to tell people that you exist within a bubble or even like a toroidal, which is similar to a bubble, right? So we all live in a bubble. And what do I mean by a bubble? Well, we've established that there's the inner world and we've established that there's an outer world and there's something that's a barrier in between us. So if you want to say that we're like a bubble in the sense that we have a more of a shape to us than we do just a roundness, but there is the idea that there's an inner, there's a being, and then there's the outer, right? So there is a shift in these different realities. Now, the reason why a bubble will help explain this is because a bubble itself is what it is, right? It is a bubble, right? The the little thin layer between realities is what makes it the bubble. The bubble is not what's the inner world, and the bubble is not the outer world, right? But it is the membrane that connects both worlds together, right? So inside of us is our thoughts and feelings. I like to think of thoughts and feelings like a type of smoke. So like the smoke inside is moving, but like the bubble isn't being affected. And there's a lot of people that will feel a thought or a feeling that disrupts the internal movement. So like the smoke is moving around, but that smoke moving around doesn't necessarily affect the bubble, right? So the bubble can sustain itself while the smoke inside is acting a little erratic, right? So there's times where people behave in a way that their thoughts and feelings do not reflect, right? So internally, they're going through some kind of crisis or some kind of struggle, but they're not allowing the bubble, the behavior to represent that type of struggle coming out of them. So you can see that they have this barrier in between the self inside or the inner self and the outer self and then the self. So the self is creating a barrier between both worlds, even though there are thoughts and feelings that would like to come out or want to do something. The self is keeping and containing these inner thoughts and feelings from being able to affect the outer world, right? So you become the barrier in between the inner and the outer world. Right? So there's that, how the bubble works, right? So another thing I like to tell people about the bubble is that, again, feelings and thoughts are inside, okay? And if I was to tell you, hey, I know what you're thinking, even if I was to guess the right answer, even if I knew what you were thinking and I could tell you, the only way I can confirm this answer is this person has to tell me, yes, that is true. Okay. They have to confirm it, even if I'm correct. And that's why, again, if they lie, I can't confirm that they're lying. I can't confirm that I'm right because they just told me, no, that's not true. So I don't really have a way to confirm it in this world, right? There's no way to actually validate that my perspective is true unless they tell me. And so thoughts are within a person. The same idea with feelings. Even if I was to guess someone's feelings, they would have to tell me with their words what they are feeling and they'd have to confirm it, right? What does that mean? That means if somebody's thoughts are yelling at them, that yelling is real for that person just as much. If my stress was yelling at me, it'd be real for me. But the difference is we don't share those thoughts in our shared reality. So there's our own reality and then there's shared reality. Within shared reality, we don't hear internal dialogue. We don't hear internal feelings. So if your body is hurting and it is an extreme pain, I don't feel that pain on my end because my body isn't going through the same pain that this person is. So they're going through their own pain. So no matter how loud their body is yelling at them, I can't hear those yells. I can't hear those cries. I can't hear how painful their body is. But I do have to have faith that they're telling me the truth, that when they speak, they're speaking from truth, that they're not lying. I have to have faith in this person because I have no way of testing whether they're truly hurting or not. I just have to believe the person that when they tell me this, they're coming from a place of authenticity and they want me to be able to know the pain that they're going through, right? And so again, I can't confirm thoughts and feelings. I can only confirm behaviors, right? So anytime you assume someone's thoughts and feelings, you're already going into a place that you can't confirm. So the best thing you can do is put limits with people, right? And say, okay, like obviously they're in their thoughts and feelings, but I'm going to judge the behavior, right? Because at the end of the day, the behavior is the thing that we as can objectively change, right? We can be in control of our being. We can control our outcomes through the way we handle our reality, right? So that's why it's important to be in tune with how do I engage with the world? How do I engage with myself? Because at the end of the day, my thoughts and feelings aren't real. They're only as real to my reality as they are to my reality, as anybody else's reality is to theirs. So, for example, if I'm playing Minecraft, I have a HUD system. But when I see somebody else playing, I only see their character. I don't see their HUD as well. So they see their HUD, their little options, and they know their inventory. They know everything about their character. I don't see those facts. But I have to believe that when they look at their character screen, they also see the same screen that I do. I have to have faith that we see the same things. That when I say go look for this, their screen will look the same as mine. So there's faith that there are thoughts and feelings, which is why You can't do mental health. It doesn't work. You have to do behavioral health because you have to be able to read the behaviors to be able to see what is going on. So when someone starts speaking about their thoughts and feelings, I can measure that. The tone of voice, the rate of speech. I can like what words they use, everything. I can measure reality because that's shared. When you speak, we have a shared reality now, right? That we share behavior within the world, but I do not share your thoughts, so I cannot hear your head, and I do not share your feelings, so I cannot hear your body, right? So I can't feel the things you feel, I can't hear the things you hear, I can't see the things you see because that is your perspective. Okay, so now we know thoughts and feelings are not real, but they do live within somebody. Now here's where it gets interesting. If this person's thoughts and feelings start to build pressure, eventually this pressure will pop, and when it pops, this is when people lose their form. They lose themselves. The self is the membrane of the bubble. So now all their thoughts and feelings are just coming out in a very raw way. So all of a sudden, everything's just coming out of them, right? And so when people's thoughts and feelings are coming out, they're just letting out all this negative energy, all these thoughts and feelings. They're just letting it out, no filter, just raw and every way, right? And so why is that a problem? Well, then everything they do they have to take on later as a responsibility for losing themselves. They were not in control during that time, so they were acting out as a result of their lack of control. So, due to a lack of control, they were unable to be themselves. And without being themselves, they're more vulnerable to people calling them out on their negative behaviors, people looking down at them for not taking care of themselves, right? And so they don't even, because how can you take care of the self if there is no self to take care of? Because you're just thoughts and feelings, you're just not you. You are the barrier between your thoughts and feelings and the outside world when you are in the membrane of the bubble. But if you let that bubble pop, you are no longer the self. You are just feelings and thoughts reacting without a self involved. You lose yourself in the process because there's no barrier between the worlds. So this same idea or philosophy can happen when somebody is putting pressure on the bubble. So when they're pressurizing the bubble, they're making the bubble, right, feel this pressure. Well, the same thing pop, right? And if you pop, all your thoughts and feelings come out. And when all your thoughts and feelings come out, again, you deal with the same problem of being raw, right? And when you're raw, when you're too present, when you're too there, you lose yourself again. You let yourself out, and then that guilt and that shame starts to show up later because you didn't know how to handle your being. You weren't able to be yourself and sustain self. So now you're not a self, right? You're just a reaction. You're just a combination of reactions of thoughts and feelings, but you have no presence, right? There's no self in this presence, right? Okay, so now we've kind of figured out that we are a bubble, and that when we deal with pressures from the inside world or the outside world, it messes with our bubble. It messes with our resilience, our ability to deal with these things. This same process and problem can come up when there is a lot of chaos in the world. So if there's a lot of chaos on the outside world, that puts a lot of pressure on the bubble. And if there's a lot of chaos on the inside world, that also puts a lot of pressure on the bubble. And so what happens when these chaoses kind of meet, right, and they start pushing somebody to extremes, then these people lose their form, right? They just become a reaction, and they just become a thought and feeling without a barrier of self. And so people that lose themselves in the sauce, people that lose themselves in reality, they've lost the form. They've lost their ability to be a self. They've lost the self, and they're just in life without any kind of boundary between the outer and inner world. Another thing I tell people, when you achieve harmony on both ends, you can flex the bubble and it becomes more resilient to pressures because it has harmony on either the outer or inner world together. And so anytime there's a fluctuation, it doesn't pop, it doesn't lose its form. It just kind of flexes its form, right? It just kind of flexes around but never loses. So it just sustains harmony. And why is harmony important? Because if you ever seen those people playing soccer with the bubble and they bump into each other, well, they can't eat, those bubbles can't eat other bubbles because all the bubbles are sustaining their form. So your bubble, your aura is the same size as somebody else's. So when they come in and try to take your aura from you, as long as you keep harmony, their bubble can't eat up your bubble. It can try to like mess with it, but it can't eat it. So you're just going to keep popping other people's bubbles, and that's their own issue because they won't contain themselves. So it's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's that people aren't taking care of their needs. And so they're putting that pressure on everybody else, right? So they're not watching over their own bubble, essentially, is what it comes down to, right? So until these people watch over their own bubble, they're going to continue to struggle with how to have interactions with people because they're not taking care of the self, right? So that's why, again, it's important to understand, how do I operate within this world? Because if I don't understand the way I operate, then I'm allowing other people to operate me. And if I allow my bubble to get small and I let somebody else eat me, it's like a cancer. It's like a mob mentality. They are eating up my personality and I am becoming a vessel for whatever they want. So now I will think and feel without a self. So I'm somebody else's essential property because I've lost a sense of self so that the outer and inner world can be one, but I'm not one with self. I'm one with whatever I'm being told. So it's like I'm being programmed to take away self, but then what am I alive for? Why am I being here? Literally, why am I being here, right? So now we understand again that the bubble is important, harmony is important, and where can we go from these understandings? Well, these understandings will then lead to another thing. Let's talk about what harmony really means. That's another way to view harmony here. And harmony comes down to the idea of tuning something, right? Being attuned to something, being attuned with yourself. What does that mean? Well, in the world, when people are playing instruments, they have like a little device to tune the instrument so they can see where their tuning needs. Well, that's for someone that doesn't know how to tune themselves yet, right? Like tune up the instrument. Because eventually, like as you practice tuning, you'll eventually be able to tune your own instrument because you just can hear it where it needs to be. And so you know how to create harmony because of your experiences. Well, the same process happens with someone's voice, right? So if we think of a guitar and we think of like you're going to tune it, whenever you tune it too high, it starts going bing, 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 and you're getting to a point where it's going to snap. The same process is what happens when people tighten themselves up too much. They get to a point where they're about to snap, and when they snap, they just blow up on everybody. So they just go off on everybody. So we want to be careful tuning up too high, but again, we also want to be careful tuning too low. If I'm too low, I lose my form, I lose my ability to hold on. I just don't care. Like even the string will just kind of fall off. It just kind of loses form and can't be played, right? And so where do we want to be? Right in the middle. We want to be attuned. We want to be in harmony. Why is that? Well, when I speak in harmony, it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. It sounds like I'm present. I'm mindful about what I say. The same process would be if I had another, drummer, guitarist, whoever I'm playing with, I'd want them to attune their instrument so that we can play in harmony. If they don't attune themselves and we're trying to play a song, it's not going to sound right because if mine is tuned properly and theirs is out of tune, then we're all out of tune because as long as one person's out of tune in the group, it's going to make it hard to create harmony within that realm. That doesn't mean that I have to play worse. It doesn't mean that I have to stop being the best of what I'm doing. It just means that they're not holding themselves accountable to a higher standard to be able to be at the same page as me because they're not taking care of the responsibilities necessary to be on the same level as I am. And that's it. It's not that I'm any better. It's just I have the discipline that they're lacking, and their lack of discipline is showing in their behavior and their life outcomes, right? So cymatics is the study of speakers and sand. And so like how different shape or different sounds have different shapes. And when you play sand and a speaker together, the sand will make certain shapes. And so what that tells us is certain sounds have certain frequencies, and those frequencies have shapes to them. So what does that mean? That means when I'm tuning a guitar to a certain note, if everybody tunes their guitar to that same note sounds the same because it has the same shape it's producing. It's producing a certain symbol. And when my ears are hearing that symbol, it helps me transition it into something I can listen to. So as the shape comes out of the instrument of whatever it is, the thing that's producing sound, that shape can actually influence the way people receive that information. So music that has a lot of harmony, music that is well put together, will be more received openly and aware, right, than music that is out of harmony and chaotic. Right? Same thing with the voice. If a voice is in harmony, if a voice is present and mindful, and not chaotic, then it's easier to hear that voice and talk to that voice, because again, it is in a form that can be understood, and it is in a form that can be present. So everybody's sound, right, has a form. And so you can literally sound bad, or you can sound good. You can sound like shit, or you can sound like you have your things together, right? So again, that's the same thing as tuning an instrument. So if you're too tied up in your life, if you're too tight, you're going to sound like you're really tight and about to snap. If you're too loose in your life, then you're going to sound like you're just barely hanging on, you're about to fall apart. And so if you tune yourself to being right in the moment and present, then when you speak with clarity. You speak like you give yourself an opportunity to be proud of the words that you use. You speak in a way that brings you to the present moment, for that you can live moment to moment fully, not worried about the future, not living in the past, but allowing yourself to live in a more present, fuller moment. One where you can keep your mind on the activity that you're doing and truly invest yourself greatly into every objective that you have, every goal that you have, aligning your moral and value system into a system of operation that encourages you to stay motivated every day and driven to find your discipline to achieve the goals that you have for yourself. So that's an example of just being in the present moment, allowing yourself to talk and not worrying about things and not feeling like you have to be in the past, but just being present moment to moment. That is the importance of being in tune, right? A great song is not played quickly, it is played with precision, and precision is disciplined, right? We don't want to play a song quickly. We want to play it appropriately, right? As it was intended to be played. So those are kind of the things that are important to think about when it comes to being attuned and harmony, allowing your voice to be present, allowing your voice to be one, right? In that moment. We're going to break down this iceberg a little more, right? We're going to bring it to another level. Another level to think about this is this. So let's say that I tell you put 1 foot out of your house and 1 foot inside of your house. So you put one out and one in, and now you're standing there. And if I asked you, where are you at that moment? Well, you're not in and you're not out. You're somewhere in the middle. And because you're somewhere in this middle zone, you can see something very interesting. So one eye is inside and one eye is outside. So technically, at that moment, you can see both the inside and outside world at that one moment with each eye. Not only that, that where the doorway is right there in the middle is where your third eye would be, right? The conscious eye, the eye that exists within. And so now we have another way of looking at this third eye is the in between my worlds, right? So now I know that the third eye exists so that I can see both realities. If I just focus on the outer world and I just look out and I just look at the outer world, and what about that? And yeah, what are you guys working on? And I just only work about everybody else and not myself, then my world's going to start to fall behind because I'm not giving it the same detail of attention. If I only focus on the inside and I look at my stuff, then I don't notice the giant tsunami coming my way. So how can I be prepared for something coming my way if I only focus on myself? And so when I focus and remember to be in the center, be mindful of the present moment, then I realize I'm not my thoughts and feelings. And I'm also not the stimulators on the outside. I'm truly just the behavior that I choose to be in that moment. I am the self that is in charge here. Another way I break this down, how to understand the third eye, the conscious eye, is very simple. I tell people, close one eye and have one eye open and just notice what you see. Then switch the eyes, switch the other eye, see what you see. And now open both eyes. And now this is the one singular conscious eye that sees everything, right? So your eyes can look, but it's your consciousness that sees. So your third eye is the deeper eye beyond the eyes that look. It's the eye that can see. It's the eye that can listen. It's the eye that can feel. Okay. So just like your ears can hear, but they don't listen, is the same way that your hands can touch, but your soul is the one that feels. Okay. So touching is not the same thing as feeling. Just like looking is not the same thing as seeing. Just like hearing is not the same thing as listening. Right. So all of these things are important to understand that the self inside is separate from both the outer and inner world, that you are the bubble, you are the literal barrier between the reality within and the reality without. Now, again, why is all this important? Because the act of observing, the act of being mindful and present is what gives you the power to remove yourself from being stuck in thoughts and feelings. Because the action of observing is to put your attention to something specific. And in that moment, you are actively using your attention to control the outcome that you want, right? So, being in the role of observer is allowing yourself to be right there in that middle door, present as the observer is. Because again, the only thing you can control is the bubble. You're not going to control the thoughts and feelings, you're not going to control the outer world. But what you can do is learn to agree with the outer and inner world in a way where that barrier is easier to manage, right? Where the inner world isn't getting overly angry and where the outer world isn't get overly heavy, and you just kind of work with these two realities and you create the barrier that creates all. And that's how you sustain self, right? You, the person that acts day to day, the person that reacts day to day, is the true self. As long as you manage the self, it's easier to accomplish your dreams and outcomes because again, you're always in control of the self. You're in control of where you move and how you operate. So this is all super important again to understand the third eye, understand the being, understand the way you operate in this reality, understand that your self, the behaviors you do, is the most important thing for measuring change, for measuring outcomes. It's also the most important thing for understanding relationships with other people so that you can sustain harmony even when they're being chaotic. And know that a being of chaos thrives under chaos, but they don't do so well with harmony. And the reason why people that are chaotic do not like people in harmony is because that is a layer of peace and existence that they're not able to achieve. And so they would rather avoid having to establish and achieve harmony than just remaining deep in their chaos. Because again, they're already agents of chaos. It's easier for them to sustain chaos than it is for them to learn the ability and gain the ability of sustaining harmony, which is a whole different type of ballgame, right? Again, it's easier to let myself go, be upset, be frustrated, and victimize myself. It is harder to sit there, accept myself for who I am, and then make changes so that I don't have to continue to deal with that same deficit that I've been dealing with since the beginning, right? And so, again, this is why the bubble and this is why the third eye and these things are important to know because they will elevate you to that higher level of self, right? More control of your behaviors, more control of your proactive responses, more control of your destiny and how you want to live your life. Another thing that I teach people that is super important is how do I understand the way human beings operate on a mana, on a spiritual level? Well, I like to think of a kind of like a rag, right? Like a rag, you got to let it soak, right? So you put it in the water, you let it soak it up, right? And then you put it on something and you clean, and then like you got to wring it out, right? Wring it out. And so we are operating the same way. First, we like to soak up life. So we got to soak life up. And then that gets us full of that wetness, right? That water. And then as we clean and work, right, and get like let out, that energy after a while starts to get rang out of us, right? Because we're doing all these things, we're like working. And so that work is putting stress on the towel. We are the towel and it stresses and it takes the water away, right? So now that I dried out my towel from working all day, now I need what? More water, right? So I got to put the towel in and I got to let go so it can soak up the water. Once it soaks up that water, I go back to cleaning and I keep doing the same process, right? Now, here's where humans are interesting to come into play here. If I have somebody who I just wringed out all the water and I put it underwater, the only way that that rag can soak up water is I have to let go of the tension I'm putting on the towel or the rag, or it cannot soak up water. And there's so many people that live in this world under the same context as that they don't know how to release the pressure from themselves. They don't know how to let go. And because they don't know how to let go, they don't know how to take in the spiritual mana of life. They don't know how to soak in some of the good. And due to their lack of not being able to soak in this good energy, then they just keep what? Popping off. They keep having negative outcomes as a result. right? They don't know how to absorb so that they can handle more the next day, right? They just get so dried out. And like I tell people, if you look at a tree that loses water also loses its ability to hold its own. It becomes more brittle and more sensitive to any kind of change. The same thing for dirt that doesn't have water, right? Dirt that doesn't have water becomes very stale and has a hard time holding shape and form. It's less resilient versus water that has, or dirt that has water in it, right? Dirt that has enough moisture in it to make it what? Resilient. So what the reality is that water is a way for physical resilience to maintain itself. So it's important to remember that too, that hey, if I take away this water, if I take away this lifeblood from myself, my mana, if I take away that resilience, then I'm much more likely to break under pressure, to break under things. Because just like a towel that's been so dried, how can a towel clean when it has no water to clean with? How can it get rid of any kind of stuff, any kind of gunk, if it doesn't have the spiritual mana to go along with it? So just remember yourself as that towel, as that tree, as the need for mana, as the need for flow, as the need for soaking in the good energy, right? That peaceful, tranquil energy is what helps you sustain and maintain yourself during stressful times when you're getting rang out, right? Literally getting rang out for your life energy. So it is important to soak. It is important to take the time to sit with reality and let yourself just be present, be mindful of whatever activity you're doing and doing it, to a way or to a degree where you feel fully invested and involved, right? That's how you find peace in your life, is fully investing in things. And this also goes to something else that I've been teaching people. Some people don't know this, so I'll teach you guys. But therapy is a art style. It's not a science. It's really funny how people might think it's a science, but it's not. It's literally the art of counseling, right? So that's what my master says, the art of counseling. Now, why is that so true? Well, I'll teach you guys. As we said earlier, thoughts and feelings cannot be measured. Okay, so only behavior. So if someone comes to therapy, right, and they're struggling with using the tools or even engaging in the process, then it's similar to somebody coming to a painting class who's never put paint on a canvas. It's hard for me to teach somebody any kind of painting techniques, even color theory and the basics, if they're not willing to at least get their brush wet and start a little bit of painting, right? Without that painting and that experience, it's hard for me to explain to them how to use any kind of tools because they're missing the most fundamental part, just painting, just getting some mechanical stuff done. And this is the same thing with therapy. If I have somebody that has such severe symptomology that they're not able to put paint on their brush and just paint on the canvas, then the first thing we have to do is teach them how to just paint without technique, how to just paint, how to start, how to decatastrophize, worrying about outcomes when we haven't even started painting, right? I can't even worry about an outcome that I haven't even started working on. And so that is where technique starts to come in, where I might have to teach a person just to start painting from nothing, just to paint. Then after they get their brush wet and they start gaining some experience, then we can switch it over to, okay, I'm going to teach you color technique. I'm going to teach you how to blend. I'm going to teach you how to understand perspective shadowing, like all these little techniques, right? So we start talking about the fundamentals of art so we can break down the techniques for them. Once we break down the techniques, depending on what's going on, so if this person's in a deeper crisis and they're not able to paint a picture where they feel comfortable with, they're still feeling like they lack technique, well, then we'll start kind of working on a specific modality. So if they have like a need for therapy because of some major life changes recently, and that's mainly their problem, I might do one type of style, right? So if someone feels comfortable with a certain type of art style, I'm going to go with that one because it makes the most sense to the way they operate and the challenges they would like to face and the things that they masterpiece they want to paint, right? And then I have somebody else who's got like lifelong deeper trauma, things that have been going on for most of their life. And so the way I'm going to approach their therapy is going to be much different because of the challenges they've been facing. So their need to paint is a lot different, and the techniques they're going to need, or the style that they're going to be most comfortable with, is going to take a different approach than the person that just had one trauma recently. So depending on the situation, depending on what's going on with somebody, is going to change how I operate within the realm just as much as I would in an art style, right? Everyone that I paint with is going to paint a picture of their desire, but the style that they painted in, the techniques that they use, they may be different because of their backgrounds, because of the things they need. I may not have to change as much of their life because they have good schemas, they have good ideas, they have good ways of dealing with things. But if they don't have those things, then I will give them the extra tools they need so that they can have lifelong change, and they won't feel left behind, or they won't feel like they don't know. Because again, my idea is that if I teach them how to paint, if I teach them technique, if I teach them color scheme, if I teach them all the basics, then they will have the tools necessary to paint their own masterpiece. And that is my goal, is to make them the painter they need to paint their masterpiece. And another thing this comes down to, when it comes to painting a masterpiece, one thing that all amazing painters had in common, the greatest painters, is they all cared. They cared about the way they painted. And at the end of the day, as long as you care every day about your intention, about your behavior, and you paint every day as if every day you paint matters, and they all matter because they're all leading to one greater picture, then you can paint a masterpiece. It's when you stop caring, it's when you stop being thoughtful on what you say and how you act, and what, like, just the way you operate. When you stop caring, the world will reflect that. So your master painting can never show up as long as you stop caring about painting a masterpiece. So the day you stop caring, I don't care, whatever, you're just going to do whatever you want. But then later you're going to regret it, because you're going to say, why didn't I just keep doing what I was doing? Why didn't I just stay consistent? And that's the trick with life. That's the challenge about life is, can you paint the masterpiece? Right? Do you have the tenacity to wake up every day and say, I'm going to give this my all. I'm going to give this a lot of effort. I'm going to be genuine about the effort and conscious energy I put towards this project or this belief system or whatever I'm creating or producing or experiencing. And so again, we go back to being one with self and engaging fully in the present, engaging fully in the self, engaging with what my desires are, and where I want to move in life. So yeah, it's important for us to be aware, to really take the time to be mindful, and really think about what words we're using. Another thing I'll teach you guys, this is a fun one. The word words, if you change the arrangement of the letters, it actually spells the word sword, right? And so words affect people similar to a sword, which is why when you say something to somebody and they don't like it, they'll literally say, why are you attacking me? Why are you hurting me? Why do you want me to die? Why do you want to kill me? And they'll say these things, and you're just using words. You're only speaking, but it's because speaking can cut deep just like a sword, right? Because of the way your mouth is attached to your heart, and your arm is attached to your heart, people take it the same way. Whether you draw a sword too early before somebody says anything and start showing that you're attacking them, or you start attacking with words or saying things before they get a chance to let out their piece, they will take it the same way as if you're killing somebody and you're just using words. So even words can be a sign of a way that you can kill somebody, right? Hurt somebody, because again, it cuts deep, right? These wounds cut deep, right? So words are a sword, and they will cut people. So be intentional with every word that you have, because that's how you paint your masterpiece, or you write a masterpiece of a book, right? Same thing for a book. Every word that's used in a book, you want it to be carefully thought out, at least for the moment, right? Say it with complete mindful state, say it in the present moment, say it with grace, say it with confidence, say it in peace. And as long as you stick to that compass, then you will represent yourself for your true nature. And that true nature can be respected. That true nature can be valued. That true nature can be understood, right? Because my bubble is reflective of both worlds. I don't have to change my bubble so my inner world can be comfortable, and I have to change my bubble so my outer world can be comfortable. I just need to maintain my bubble so there is maintainment, or there is constantness or connectedness, mindfulness, presentness in the moment. So that's the general idea of how we operate within this magical world, you could say, that we have our center of attention, we have the center of the universe. We can understand that our third eye is the conscious eye, the one that blends everything. We also can realize that touch and feelings are different, that seeing and looking are different, that all these things. Oh, another thing we want to think about too, when it comes to the way we operate. So when you're thinking of your inner and outer self, you need to think of them similar to the way you would look at a system of two eyes working together. If one of your, if, let's say both your eyes, let's say both your eyes play tricks on you, right? And they didn't tell you the truth completely. Like sometimes you'd see something, but one eye's seeing and one eye's not, and so it would start confusing you about how you operate within your reality, because these two things are meant to work as a team. They're meant to be a unit. So your thoughts and feelings are meant to be one. And when they work as two, then they don't work as efficient. So if your hands were working differently too and they weren't listening together, it'd be very hard to operate. If your legs weren't working well together, it'd be very hard to operate. So anytime something's from the same system but the opposite, they usually need to work as a team, because that's what they were designed to do. Even if they're opposites, like my hands are opposites, but they're meant to work as a team. My feet are opposites, but they're meant to work as a team. My eyes are opposites, but they're meant to work as a team. So everything's meant to work as a team, especially if as an opposite. So your thoughts and feelings are opposites, but they're meant to work together. Your outer and inner are opposites, but they're meant to work together. The forward and backwards are opposites, but they're meant to work together. So everything that has an opposite is meant to work in conjunction with each other. And when you can operate within that realm, it makes a lot more sense. Like, what do I got to do to be in tune? I need both of these things that are opposites to work as one, because that's what they were meant to do. I wasn't meant to have different selves. I was meant to be a one self, right? But sometimes it can be confusing because there's several selves or several parts to that one self. But in the end, they're supposed to work as a team to help each other, right? They're supposed to work as a unit. So we also want to keep that in mind when we're trying to like really find ourselves and be one with ourselves. Align the different, dialectical things, the different opposites together, and you'll see that you will have more community or communion within the self. All right. So just be aware of that fluidity from the different selves. Another thing I'll throw in there today, guys, something else that, God had taught me. I was working out the other day, and this is something that came to mind. I always put my head down when I work out. So it's like something that I've been thinking about. I always put my head down when I'm walking. And I was like, why do I do that? Am I ashamed? I'm like, am I embarrassed? And it came to me, and it dawned on me. You could say that the higher power kind of spoke to me. And it said like, hey, look, when you put your head down, it's because you're working towards your temple. Like you're putting in the work to, meet your needs. And so that's you like giving like your respect, right, to your body. When you're walking somewhere, you walk with your head up, because walking with your head up is walking with God. So you're walking with your higher power. And then when something beautiful happens, like a blessing, you look up and you say, thank you for that blessing. And so that's how I've kind of come down to the idea of like, when I'm serving God, I got my head down and I'm serving. When I'm walking with, I got my head straight, I'm walking with. And when I'm praising and saying thank you, I look up and I just say thank you to the divine source for giving me that opportunity, or making everything aligned and making that day just work out for me. And so I appreciate that essence, right? So I just want to teach you guys that one. That was been something that's been on my mind lately, about the way your head operates and what it can mean for your divine state. Another thing, I was talking to somebody, like somebody who told me like, the Bible is man-made, right? And I said, this is true, right? The Bible is man-made. But I will also say this. The Bible is also telling us that we are all connected to a divine source as human beings. And how many people, prophets, how many people were taken over by the Holy Spirit and they wrote things? So how does God speak to us? God speaks to us through people that are open to be spoken to. But there is a difference. There are people that will tell you what God says you need to do, and there were people that guide you on what God tells them they needed to do, or their insight on how the world operates. And so they're not telling you what to do, they're explaining you things the way God helped them understand, and they're providing that understanding to somebody else. So now we have a mutual understanding. So God doesn't want to teach people how to know things, He wants to teach people how to understand things. If somebody wants to teach you how to know things, they're not teaching you for deeper understanding, they're teaching you for control of ideology, right? I do not tell people this is what God told you have to do. I explain to them that their actions have consequences, or their inactions also have consequences, and they can decide what they want to do with the information that was shared with me. If I see that somebody's miserable, I don't need to go tell them you're miserable and God told me that you need to do this, this, and this. No, I'm going to let them be miserable. And when they ask for guidance, I'll say, this is how God guided me to reach my highest capacity. Maybe it's something you may consider for yourself, right? Or maybe I might tell them meditate on it or pray on it or find your divine source to help guide you. But if I'm telling you what I know compared to what I understand, I'm simply controlling a narrative. I'm not giving you the opportunity of free will to answer amongst yourself what greater thing you want. I am telling you what you will do, and I'm controlling your free will by telling you this is what you have to do. So when someone tells me man made the Bible, this is true, but God made man. And God uses man to explain God's awareness, God's power, but only through people that are open to God, right? So I have been a conduit for God myself. Some of the best things I've ever come up with, I did not come up with like on my own. They just came out of my mouth. I don't even know how to explain other than it just immaculate conception. Like there was no thought before it came to my mouth. It just came out and then it made sense after I said it. So I said words or I said phrases or I had beliefs that came out of me without any like prior idea or intention, but everything that came out of me was so truthful that it had a deep impact on my reality from that point on. So like thoughts are a reaction to feelings based on stimulation. Oh no. Feelings are a reaction to stimulation based on experience. Just like that. When I said that, it just came out of me. Right? When I said passions, hobbies, and interests are related to depression, and independence, future, and self-respect is related to stress, those things came out of me. I did not think about them and put pieces together. I simply spoke and they came out of me through immaculate conception. They just came out of nowhere. And that's the same idea of most of the brilliant things I've come up with. It wasn't that I was able to find these answers on my own. I was provided these epiphanies because I was aligning with a higher version of myself. That higher version was more receptive to a higher teacher, right? And so, me being a good student of understanding and awareness allowed me to receive even more information from the great beyond, or the great, whatever, the universe, God, the great creator, the great informer. And so that's really what the important thing is about understanding, being self, being aware, being in the present, is it opens you up to opportunities and insights that you wouldn't have had if you were a know-it-all. I would rather much be an understand-it-all than a know-it-all, because again, a know-it-all will limit themselves on what more they can learn because they already believe that they know it all. Someone that wants to understand is always open to new perspectives, because that new perspectives gives them a new understanding on the dialectical nature of the world, right? If I want to understand my enemy, I need to let them speak so I can hear them, so I can hear their perspective, right? I need to let them speak because maybe there's something in there that is true, but that truth doesn't change reality, but it does give them a perspective, and it does give them a reason for believing what they do. And by me understanding them, I can actually use their own knowledge, their own insight against them, because I understand the whole picture, even though they may understand just their picture. And this happens a lot in politics. I might post something or say something, and somebody might just come at me and say this. But the reality is that when I say something, I have already done a lot of my own research. I already did a lot of my own things. And I'm not going out of my way telling other people that they're wrong. I'm not going out of my way telling people that need to change. I am simply speaking for what I am seeing in front of me. And my belief systems comes from a long history of exploring things, the self, different information. So somebody that has to go out of their way to tell me that my belief system is wrong already tells me where they're at in their belief system being wrong, because I never had to go out of my bubble to try to convince somebody that my version was right. I simply became aware of why my version is correct based on all the things that I'm understanding. If they wanted to understand me more, they're more than welcome to come ask me where I got my perspective up, where what it is. But if they're going to come and tell me why my perspective is incorrect, I don't even want to have a discussion with this person, because at the end of the day, what are they showing me? They're showing me that they're not willing to look at both perspectives. They don't actually care about my perspective. They just care about validating their own perspective. Again, I'm not trying to change people's minds. I am simply speaking for the truth that I see in front of me. If somebody wants to convince me of their truth, then they don't want to understand why I believe the truth that I have. They simply want to control the truth that I'm existing within. And again, that is a control thing. That is a lack of self-awareness, a lack of self-respect. Because again, I don't need to go change other people to validate what I'm already seeing. It's very clear in front of me what I see. I don't need enough like approval from another source to be able to validate the thing that I'm experiencing. And if people can understand that too, you'll go a long way, right? One of the things I see a lot of my clients and patients struggle with is they get stuck on wanting to change the people outside of them. This is not going to happen. The only way, if you truly want to, and this is just a journey everybody's going to go through, the only way to truly change the toxic people in your life is to create so much harmony in your own life that the only option they have left is to accept that they're chaos and to align with your harmony. But the only way to do that is you have to show discipline beyond a reasonable doubt that you are showing them the proper way of living, and they have nothing to show for other than their hate and resentment. And that's how you create change. Because change does not happen from convincing them their perspective is wrong. Change happens from inspiring to change their perspective because a greater tomorrow exists within them. So we want to encourage people to find the self, find the third eye, find the being within, so that they get off this belief system that they are just what the physical is. You're not your eyes. You're the thing beyond the eyes. You're not your hands. You're the thing beyond your hands. Again, your hands can only touch, they don't feel. Your eyes can only look, they do not see. This is where it comes, this is all goes back to us. My mouth can move, but if I do not allow my spirit out, it cannot make sounds. I'm in control. Even if my mouth is open, I can control all the sounds coming out of it because I'm in control of my energy. I am the being that is present. I am the being that is aware of their behavior and aware of the way they operate within the world. So take that control back, right? Take your being back and be yourself. Be your full presence. Be unapologetic for just being authentic. This does not mean that you can go around telling other people that you're better than them. This simply means that when people gaslight you into saying you think you're better than them, you simply say, if by better than you means I have more discipline and take care of myself more, sure. And I think we all can benefit from that. And I'll just leave it at that. What are they going to say beyond that? Don't work on yourself. Don't take care of yourself. One of the best things you can do, especially as you change, is let people use their word as a sword to dig themselves their own hole and wound themselves with their own words. Let people complain. Let people be in their darkness. Just don't join their chaos. Because a being of chaos will always outperform you in chaos if that's not your nature. That is their nature. I do not fight a shark in the water. I wait for the shark to try to get to land. And when it finally tries to get to land, I say, are you done trying to get me? Are you ready to change? Are you ready to not be a shark anymore? Because I will not get in the water and fight in your world. You will come to my world and you will try to fight where I'm at. Because I'm not willing to go to the depths that they are. I'm willing to stay in my reality where I'm at. So these are things that I want people to consider. How can we understand the self more, be more present in our awareness? How can we understand our spark more? Well, the spark is the thing that receives the light that's being emitted and transformed into data from your eyes to your soul. So again, your eyes are catching the light, but it's not your eyes that are seeing, it's the being within the eyes that sees the light beyond, right? And that third eye is also the eye that is consciously aware of things that cannot be seen in by the naked eye, right? So this is things like bad energy, like someone like being off, right? Or if you have a vision, like let's say you have like a nightmare or something, it's not your eyes that see the nightmare, it's not your eyes that see the hallucination, it's your mind or a vision, whatever you want to call it. So if you're having a vision of some sort, it's not your eyes that are seeing the vision, it's your conscious being that's seeing the vision. So again, going back to that thing, even if the Bible is written by a man, as long as we have a man connected with a higher source and divine source, that's normal. That's what it's going to look like. Men working together because of a higher divine source, linking them up, beings as one. So, yeah, the Bible was written by a man, just like everything else was, because again, God isn't going to write in our language, we will, but He will help us be aware of what to write, how to write, when to write, so that we can help create the greatest story ever told. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming today. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care of those beings, take care of that energy, and we'll talk soon. All right, guys, take it easy.